You liking John? He seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, you know, he's been so busy, I haven't had a chance to really do much with him yet, but I'm sure we'll get our turn.
You're back up here with the big table.
Go over to the kids' room.
That was the mayor's request. Oh, I should turn this.
Oh, I worked hard to make that microphone work. You talk to that microphone.
Was my request, it would put it all back to normal.
No, I know, but the mayor finally agreed.
So when it's normal.
Did he though? Because this isn't normal.
Councilmember Thor.
Their suspense time that they've all worked is now accrued to an excess of that standard hours worked. So I'm proposing that we pay them out at time and a half, which is the overtime rate for all of the suspense hours that are in excess, and then the holiday hours, we pay them out at hour for hour to make it whole. And vacation, I believe, is being, for all city employees, they have excess in their vacation hours, and I'm pretty sure that action is being taken to roll over into 2022.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I would apologize. I did take these out of order. So Chief is discussing item B on the agenda, and we'll circle right back to item A. So when he's referring to vacation rollovers, that would be item A. So my apologies.
Thanks.
There's two parts to that, correct? And that's with the independent school district too, then?
So the second part is our agreement, which is fantastic with the school district 622 leadership. Love the relationship that we have with them. And right now, how it's set up in the contract with them, they pay us, I think it's $74,160 to have a school resource officer, one of our officers in their building every day of the school year. And then they also frequently request officer coverage at a handful of sporting events or any event, which then our officers work, and they put on their timesheets overtime. The school has agreed to reimburse us as a city for that. Currently, it's just going back into the general fund, the $74,160, which is the contractual rate for school resource officer and any overtime hours. So totally fine keeping the $74,160 in the general fund where it is currently, but then those excess hours that our officers are putting in as overtime hours on their timesheets, which the school district is reimbursing us for, I would like to see those back into the police budget, and then that would hopefully reduce our excess overtime budget where it is right now, because that's a handful of money coming back in to the city's pocket when it should, I'm proposing, go back into the police department overtime budget.
I guess that's a question for the finance director. Does that make sense for that to be done in that order?
Mr. Mayor, council members, yes, to me, I consider 2021 done, complete and over. So this is really looking at it into the future and for 2022. The police department, as you're all aware, is already in the general fund. Part of a revenue stream in the general fund is that $74,160. So it's not directly funding the police department, it's indirectly, but then so is the levy and the taxpayers. What the police chief is asking for is if there's revenue in excess of that $74,000, that we basically amend the budget by doing an increase in appropriation, an increase in revenue that's particular to the police department. Therefore, he would have the ability to utilize those funds. I'm okay with that as long as the amendment that we do to the budget, and I would feel more comfortable that we would periodically take it to the city council for their approval, would be done after we actually receipt the money, that we don't do an increase of an estimated appropriation in revenue. We'll do it as we've actually receipted those funds in. And then we would bring an item just to amend the budget for the police department.
Councilmember Peterson?
Dan, is this going to be a regular occurrence? I mean, if we get fully staffed, this is going to go away. I mean, there's going to be overtime, I get that, but it will help if we want to get a full complement of officers, or I'm not understanding it.
So for this, the school district created overtime, that's,
Yeah, I get that part.
okay, the
But I'm
suspense
just-
time, the first part on
Yeah.
suspense time. The sad answer is there's no assurance that we're not going to be back in the same situation due to the pandemic. The numbers that I put on the memo have already increased by 2. I had 4 have been out since I started with the city due to COVID-19 quarantine, but now we're 2 higher than that. So that's not a short time frame that they're out, that then creates the scenario where we have to ask other officers to cover that, which then throws the suspense time all out of the plan. So it will absolutely help as far as staffing to get fully complemented when we can hire and have a staff closer to where we are slated for with 18 for 2022. But it's, you know, there's no guarantee that's going to eliminate it with the pandemic going on.
Any other questions? Councilmember Thorson?
Yeah, since we're talking about staffing, where are we at with officers that are injured and coming back? Is there any estimate on when they will return? And because I know that's something at least we can know, if someone's injured and they're expected to be out 6 months, where are we at in that time frame? Versus
Sure.
someone that gets COVID, it's hard to predict and how long.
So we have we're one short right now. It was a tough decision to make, but we had to let go of our 2 longstanding officers, December 31st of 2021. So they are off of the complement, which now we'll be able to hire in their replacement of fully to get us back up to that 18. And then there is 1 that is out right now. So we're down 3 currently.
There's 1 out injured or 1 out?
1 out on FMLA leave.
So there were 2 officers that were let go,
There were
and they were both injured.
on duty, correct. So that happened back in,
Let someone go if they're injured on the job. I didn't understand the circumstances. Maybe we could discuss that a little further. I mean, I know we understand we have to be mindful of protections about discussing, medical information and whatnot, but if we know there's employees that are on medical, we need
So, Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Thorson, this occurred prior to my tenure, but I will say that I asked many of the same questions, and I do know that this was thoroughly vetted through and working in concert with the city attorney. So all personnel and human resources practices were properly followed.
And so there's a bank of officers that we've been working on to try to get on board?
Yeah, it's a very small bank, as every agency in the country likely is seeing. Yeah, we had 7 applications in for police officer. We're not eliminating the physical agility testing throughout our hiring process, because I don't want to reduce our standards that we've set forever. So hopefully that number isn't decreased by any. But yeah, we currently have 7 applicants for police officer position openings.
Do you have a timeline and about when that would occur?
Yeah, they're taking the row test on Thursday this week, some on Friday, followed by interviews the next week. And then following interviews, it's backgrounds for anyone that scores high enough from the remaining pool. And then that can take anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks to properly do a background of them. And then followed by conditional offers, passing of the medical exam, the psychological exam, and then if they pass all that, then they'll start. So I'd say 2-ish months.
About March?
Yeah. Sounds right.
Is it pretty much the whole police force itself is under that overtime? Or is it just a few officers that took more of the responsibility than other ones, or?
It wasn't really something that any of them created. So, like, if there was a hole, which there were a lot of in 2021, that's when me and the other sergeants were nearly begging people to fill the holes that were created. So with that came a lot of night shifters going to day shift, and we're basically broken up into 2 sides of the schedule. There's an A team and a B team. So when we're on a 4-and-4 schedule, when somebody has their 4 days off, the other team's working. So if somebody went out on day 2 from either one of the teams, you know, we were at a point where we didn't care who it was that was working the shift. We needed somebody to get in a squad car and respond to emergency calls for service. So if that was night shifter from the opposite team coming to the other team to work a patrol shift, that's what throws that suspense bank out of balance, because they're not staying on their scheduled 4-on, 4-off. They're working days that they shouldn't have been working on a different schedule, basically. If that makes sense. So some pay periods they're accruing more naturally because they're working more in the pay period, and other ones they're working less due to, if they're following proper schedule, if the shift allows it, then it all levels out. But if they jump to another team and they're filling in for somebody who's out, then that's where we get the excess balance.
And the problem was they wanted to take vacation but couldn't?
They wanted to just take a normal day off. So that's them coming in on their scheduled day off of their 4-on, 4-off. They're not supposed to be working. And we're saying, well, we're on day 1 of the other rotation. We don't have anybody to fill this car. We will take anybody who's willing and able and healthy enough to do it to respond to calls and fill the shift. Otherwise, we're down to, and we were there on Sunday night, you know, almost only had one car on the street, which is terrible. So it was like that through the entire year. And it was, you know, the pandemic, injuries, people just weren't getting days off. So they're working on the opposite schedules and they're filling in when we asked them to. And I think they're pretty fed up of stepping up when we had to ask them so much and not taking their proper days off. And I'm sure that their significant others would support that due to their lack of time being at home throughout the entire year, really. So it's been heavy on the ask for them to fill extra shifts.
And Finance Director, so this is a budgeted non-budget item. Do we have the money in the budget for this?
Mayor, council members, yes, I've done a preliminary kind of look at where we're at right now for the 2021 in the general fund. And we're actually sitting in a pretty good position. A very conservative kind of estimate for year end is that we probably should be somewhere in the tune of about $600,000 to the positive. Part of it's due to increase in revenues to permitting, and then not expending across all the departments. I do want to make a note that a part of that savings that is there has been realized through, in 2021, there was the establishment of an internal service fund for severance payments. It's the first year. The concept is a fantastic concept, needs to be looked at when we go into the budget for 2023. We charge departments approximately $44,000. We've had some big severance payments this past year. We actually have a negative balance right now of about $220,000. That's not including the two payouts for the two police officers that were terminated at the end of the year here. So that'll be part of it. So I will be, once we get down to a little bit further down the road, probably later part of February, early March, be bringing in an item to ask for a transfer out of the 2021 to go from the general fund to that severance fund, so we don't have a negative balance in that fund. That won't look good for us, for our financial statements. And then in addition, we're going to be issuing bonds here in this first part of 2022. But that's part of how the savings have been realized, is the concept of that severance fund. But we'll have to contribute more to that in the future.
Councilmember Thorson.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around, because I wasn't aware that we had two officers that were let go. They weren't necessarily working because they were injured, whatever, injury reserve or whatever. What is there some terminology in the police department we call when someone's injured on the job and then they're not working?
Injured on duty, but they fall under FMLA. Yeah.
Okay. And if we're facing a staffing shortage, was there some indication that these officers didn't want to come back, or there was no interest in returning? Is that why this termination? Because it just seems like we're setting ourselves up to have a further issue if these two could come on in whenever. I don't know what the time frame is, a month, a week, a year. And we're looking to, was part of that decision made to expedite the hiring of new officers, and that may have prevented us from hiring two additional officers because these two are unknown? I guess I'm just not following what.
Sure. So just a little bit on that. Worst decision I've ever had to support was letting go of officers. It's terrible. They're great officers, well liked within the community, and great cops. So that was very tough. As far as all the information, there was no indication that their return was likely. So that's what led to us parting ways. So with the injuries happening back in spring, has been a part of where we are right now with suspense time, due to those being two constant holes in the schedule for 9 months. So.
Well, I mean, what's being asked to me, it just seems to make sense, and it's fair to the officers. I mean, we're in a position where it's kind of, we're at their mercy to come in and cover, because otherwise, what are we going to do?
We're going to lose them.
Yeah, and then that's putting stresses on other officers who are constantly being called into work on their day off. I know probably wouldn't necessarily appreciate that, especially if you have family and you're trying to plan vacations and whatnot. So, what's the overall budget figure on this is, Brian, or Dan, excuse me, you've got some sort of figure on that, just so we're aware of the impact. I know we asked if it was gonna impact the budget, but do we know what the total dollar amount is on the?
Yep. Yes, Councilmember Thurston. The suspense and holiday payout right now, there's still 1 week to be paid out of the 2021 budget, including taxes would amount to approximately $34,200.
And in theory, if we can reach a fully staffed patrol officer, police force, and no one gets sick and no one, then this problem goes away.
Yeah, 90%, yes, but then there's always the pandemic possibility of, us having an entire shift out again for the unforeseen future. But yeah, this would absolutely retain our current staff. I mentioned it in there, but if you go on the post board hiring website, the officers basically have freedom to work for any police department in the state right now. So it's things like this, taking care of our team, that will go a long ways to retaining them and saying, yep, I work for a city that appreciates me, and I don't want to go anywhere because of that.
Chief, thank you for bringing up work-life balance. I think that's extremely critical, especially in your roles. I do have some questions in regards to some of the overtime hours. So this is pertinent to the SRO. So
Sure.
About how many hours do you think the SRO, spends on those additional games or whatever? How many hours do you think that takes?
So it's kind of based on the school's request. So if I had to put a number, it'd be 3 hours for every half the basketball games, half the football games, as much as the school is requesting, but they're not just requesting the use of the assigned school resource officer. It's, hey, can we have 3 officers for this game? So you times, one overtime rate by 3. And then there you're getting 3 for each game. I'm not great at math, but it's a lot of hours that the school is requesting, and then we're working and then being reimbursed for those hours that were worked.
Are those hours that would be paid for by the school district, can those hours and that payment go towards paying some of the vacation days?
So vacation days are just, those are accrued
Right.
over, or you're saying for the payouts of excess suspense? I think our overtime budget's already in a terrible position when it comes to, I don't think it would cover it, to be totally honest. But it's money that the school's saying, yes, we want these officers, we're gonna hire them. Here's the agreed upon rate to the contract that we have with them. But yeah, vacation use, which hasn't been allowed, I think that's rolling over into 2022. So hopefully this year we'll allow that proper use.
Councilmember Cole.
Thank you. So I break this down into 2 topics. Topic 1 is the reimbursement of unused vacation time, et cetera. I wholeheartedly support exactly what you just said. I feel that the city needs to demonstrate to the officers that gave up their time away from home, gave up their vacations to do whatever was needed to be done for the city. So from that standpoint, and the dollar amount wasn't as large as I thought it was going to be. So from that standpoint, you've got my full support on moving forward with that. The second piece, I guess, is more, a financial aspect of it, and I guess I look to Finance Director Winnick as far as if it goes into bucket A and it gets moved to bucket B or stays in bucket A, does it impact your ability to make sure that you're staffed properly from holding you tight to your overtime budget? we blew it out of the water this year. I know we had to have. So, I mean, and it got paid. So is it just a financial thing? Does it make it easier for you? Help me understand that just a little bit.
Sure. So basically, if we were to continue with the reimbursements for overtime that the school is paying us, currently not going back into the police department budget, then that's going to eliminate use of overtime for other things. Like if there's a major event going on in the city and we want to have a team staff that, or any kind of special detail, that's going to reduce the amount of overtime money in that account, even though whatever portion of it's being reimbursed, but it's not being tied back to our overtime budget currently. If that's sounds right from my finance director over here.
Does the finance director walk down to your office when you overspend and
Yeah, only a couple times.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's whatever tool you need to make sure that the city's protected and you're staffed properly. I guess I would look more to Finance Director Winnick from the whole bucket A, bucket B thing.
Appreciate it.
So Councilmember Cole, I have a little bit different perspective on how I look at this versus, I think,
You went to finance school, though. I didn't.
the police chief. I have no objection for the current budget year of 2022. If the police chief would like to reappropriate additional revenue that he may receive from the school district. That'll be a decision when we move into the budget for 2023, whether we want to continue to allow that to happen or not. Just like part of the budget discussion, you know, we've estimated a revenue of that $74,160 that helps offset. One thing that I think really can't be overlooked is the support that the city council has given towards public safety. And everything that the police chief has said is absolutely true. There is so much uncertainty from hiring, from the impacts of COVID and everything else. However, this city council has supported every single step along the way and has allowed the overtime to go above the level that it's approaching 3 times what was budgeted. You authorized earlier last year to go out and hire additional officers. So I look at what issues that the police chief have are city issues and regarding the public safety, and that what he's talking about as far as the school district amount is really a small amount, will not solve his overall problem if we end up not being able to fully staff our workforce, and or we get more impact because of COVID. It'll be an item that would have to be brought up. The city manager would have to bring in an item up in front of the city council. We'll have to find a way to be able to fund that to keep the city as safe as it is. So I look at it from the standpoint, in a very simple way, is that his issues are real. His issues will be brought back if they run above budget, and I will be down there going, "Hey, you're over your budget." But I think the city manager and the city council will be looking for solutions of how we can fund that additional need that we have to keep the residents of the city protected. So, and you've already proven that. So,
And I think that ties in with I think it ties in together, the two, so if you want to, unless there's other questions in regards to topic B, I think topic A is kind of the same scenario.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. So I'm a fan of NASA, and in every NASA mission, they expect a glitch. And so the hope is always that it happens early and that it be minor. So now that we've got this one out of the way, I apologize for getting those out of order. This item is, as we've discussed, a temporary pause on the vacation accrual provision. Every year, the city has a limit on the number of vacation days that can be rolled over to the next year. We're asking that that limit be waived for year-end 2021 into 2022. 2021 has been an unusual year for a couple of reasons. One is something affecting everyone everywhere, and that's obviously the pandemic. You've heard from the police chief how that's impacted his operations. It's impacted every city department in some way, shape, or form. It's impacted all of your lives, so I know you're well aware of that. The other issue has been the unusually high degree of turnover with city staff in 2021. That really changed the needs that the city had for employees and really kept people from taking the vacation days that they normally would have taken. Even in a normal year, my understanding is that this item has been considered and approved on occasion in the past. But again, I think 2021 was an extraordinary year. So we are asking that that those limitations on the amount of hours that can roll over be waived. My understanding is that the limitations vary from employee to employee based on their length of tenure. I'm not exactly positive, but that's my understanding. So I can't give you a number of hours per employee. And in terms of budgetary impacts of this particular item, the vacation rollover, really the only time it becomes a budget impact is if an employee has a separation of employment and they have accrued vacation hours to be paid out. And so this would increase the number of vacation hours that would be paid out to a departing employee. And as a part of this, I would tell you that if that were to occur, if we had employees leave with the excess vacation, even in a normal hiring process, if employee A resigns or is terminated for whatever reason, with the recruiting process, it usually takes a month, 6 weeks, 2 months to get that position filled anyway. And so you've got that time that had been expected to be paying out in salary. So if that's being paid out in a vacation accrual, that shouldn't have extraordinary budget impacts. And we will look at that if there's a separation of employment for an employee that has an extra large vacation payout. We'll discuss it with the department director, with the HR, with Jenny, and make sure that we are making our hiring timing decisions with that in mind. That wouldn't be a determining factor of deciding, when we would post for a job, but it would be a factor to consider.
Councilmember Peterson.
Did we do this last year because of the pandemic? I can't remember recalling. I'm okay. I'm fine with it. I don't know the history. You said this has been done before.
Yeah.
I don't know in my tenure, maybe. I get it, but.
I think it was.
Was it?
Partially done, but I
okay.
don't know 100%. We got all new guys here.
Yeah, we don't know nothing.
All new guys.
Thanks, Ron.
Anybody else? Looks good. I thank you for all you do for your staff and all the police officers and what they've gone through the last year. And it has been a kind of unusual year. And, and you being the new guy, you've been doing a great job, and we respect that. And, I'm okay with everything too, what's
Thank
being
you.
presented. So.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it is. It's a great team, and I really think this will help do the right thing and keep them wanting to be a part of this team. So I appreciate your supportive words.
Since you're here, we might as well get an update on what's going on in the police department. We just found out that we lost 2.
Yeah.
So everything else, any other updates you want to give us?
Just this more of the same. It's been a lot of holes lately. So the start of the year hasn't been great when it comes to fully staffing every position. So it's been a tough start. love the team that we have and where we're going to go in the rest of the year. Hopefully getting some new officers on board is going to help everything from morale and reduce the demands on our whole team. So no, I'm excited about 2022 and bringing some new things. You know, one of them is with a phlebotomy grant and hoping to bring just inspire some changes around when it comes to different opportunities, whether that's being a canine officer or just getting enough on the team. I think is our number one goal. Is we just need to be fully staffed, and then it's going to be people able to spend time with their families and not be at work all the time, which I think is good in any environment that you're in for work. So I'm excited about the year ahead.
Councilmember Peterson.
How did that Cub giveaway gift card go? Did that go good?
Good. I think we still have about half left, so it's going well. Yeah, each time is just a different opportunity to help somebody out that we meet. So that's been awesome. Yeah.
Is it true when it gets cold out, the crime does go down, or is it?
Well, you know, I was chasing somebody on foot yesterday, so I don't think crime's really subsiding much. It's still been pretty active. There's plenty of calls for service going on.
I know a lot of neighboring communities are coming together. Other mayors have reached out in regards to putting together just a topic in regards to the amount of basically it's the catalytic converters is what's really out of hand with a lot of the communities, not, you know, just in the city here, but even outlying the cities. And, you know, so we're gonna, I believe, have some sort of discussion with some of the mayors in regards to our neighboring cities of what can we do? How can we help? You know,
Sure.
just kind of brainstorm.
Yeah, I'd love to join you in that conversation or take part any way that I can. You know, my immediate solution is just getting more cops on the street, and then there's a lot of factors that go into just the overwhelming amount of crime going on throughout the metro. But staffing is a huge part of that. If we can get enough cops on the street to make arrests, then we have the other large issue of prosecutors and judges holding people accountable and keeping them in custody so they are not out the next day doing the same crime and then 2 days later doing the same crime post-arrest. It's a compounding issue, and not only just that quick release of somebody that's arrested, it's a morale killer because you have patrol officers out there on the street. They do a great job getting somebody who committed a crime in custody safely, and then to see him back out on the street 2 days later doing the same crime is, you know, it brings the sense of, well, what are we doing as a police department? You know, if we're doing our job to make the arrest, but then they get out to do the same crime. So going to meet with the county attorney on Friday with the other local chiefs to have that conversation and see what all we can do to hopefully reduce crime and improve morale really in our police department.
I hope you don't mind saying just for questions because we got plenty of time.
Not at all.
Workshop
If you
here,
want to fire
workshop
away
is
at,
supposed to be a little more relaxed, so
sure,
you know,
no,
if any
not,
council member wants to ask the chief anything, good time at this time to do it, because it's a very important part of our city is your role and what your officers do. Question for me is mental health. You know,
Yeah.
I've heard of these pilot programs now that they offer some sort of mental health assistance in regards to some of the calls. I did see a Facebook post from one of our residents in regards to what happened in regards to something that could have gone south real quick, but your officers, I think, handled it, you know, superbly and were able to de-escalate something that could have been, you know, a bad outcome. And I don't know if you want to maybe mention that. I don't know if all the council members saw that or not, but
Yeah, no, that was just a great example of our fine officers that we have. I think that was a person in crisis call that they went to, and there was an onlooker with a video camera just watching the interaction between our officers and this resident, and the person was absolutely in crisis. And it's just, you know, how long will you try to talk them down? And our officers have quite the long leash when they will exhaust any length of time if the call load allows for it, obviously, but to try to create a safe environment for anybody that they're interacting with, and that was a perfect example of it. The person that was watching their interaction wasn't expecting the end result of our officers saying, hey, we'll go buy you a pack of smokes. Is that, if that's what's going to get you into the medical care that you need? And that was the tipping point for them, where they then agreed to get the help that they needed. But it was just our team of officers being able to de-escalate that situation and get the person that was in a crisis the help that they needed. So that was a fantastic email to read on our Facebook message from a citizen who wasn't expecting that end result in that one incident. But they do things like that all the time. They're going to the greatest lengths to ensure the safety of anybody that they're involved with or they encounter. And it really is an awesome team, but that was a great example and a great message to read from a citizen.
any other questions for?
Yeah, can you speak a little bit to kind of some of the top calls that you're experiencing right now?
Sure, there's still, that hasn't changed much. You know, we're still getting a ton of medicals, and lately it's, you know, just from listening to the radio, not looking at stats, but catalytic converters are still something that we're going to. You know, violent calls, there's domestics going on. It's you know, it's a dangerous job. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, top call right now, I think, is still medical at number one that we're going to.
Would you include mental health crises in that medical?
Yeah, no, that's categorized from a stats language that should go into a person in crisis category, but sometimes they are blended together into a medical call. But those are up there also, which are, you know, dangerous and unpredictable calls, given, you know, what that person might have access to in whatever setting that we're meeting them in. Yeah, it's not getting any easier for our team of officers out there.
My understanding is that Ramsey County has approved some funding for domestic violence. I'm not sure the parameters around it or the requirements to access that funds, but I believe it's from just from ARPA.
Okay.
So we may want to look into that as maybe a supplement to, you know, however you need to use that.
I did see something. I wonder if it's I read something on the county's going to start dispatching medical or person in crisis calls. Is that maybe what you're referring to? They have a separate bank of folks that they're going to start diverting certain calls to. Does that sound accurate?
I've heard that before, but I think I'm maybe referring to something a little bit different, just funding opportunities
Okay.
that are related to domestic violence. So if it's anything we can do around prevention to kind of, you know, make sure that, you know, it doesn't escalate to that point, or, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, if there's funding for it and it means that there's opportunities for more training and better service, absolutely. I'll see what's there.
Anything else? Nope. Thank you.
Yeah, Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Turn it over to city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of the workshop, I'm trying to,
I think we're done.
I think there's no other business before us.
Yep, I think that's it. So no other business. Motion to adjourn.
So moved, Your Honor.
Moved by Councilmember Peterson. Second by Councilmember Thorson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. I tried to keep you as long as I could. Meeting for January 4th of the new year of 2022. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson?
Here.
Councilmember Peterson?
Here?
Councilmember Wong?
Here.
Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Mayor Furlong?
Here, quorum is present. This time, a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved, Your Honor.
Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight. We have 3 presentations. It's nice to see a lot of friendly faces out there. I'd like to welcome everybody into the new year, 2022. And at this time, I'll turn it over to City Manager John Stark, and we'll start the presentations. Or do you
Thank you,
want
Mayor.
me to do?
Oh, no, thank you, Mayor Furlong. We do have presentations tonight. The first is from the North St. Paul History Cruisers, and they'll be presenting the North St. Paul Police Department, Fire Department, and Veterans Park Committee with a donation. So
If we can get the North St. Paul Veterans Park group or representative to maybe come up to the podium here, and we could make the presentation. I don't know if you want all to come up. You're more than welcome. In the history cruisers, it's funny, I'm seeing people on both sides of history cruisers and Veterans Park, so kind of fun to see. And who's the spokesperson for the? So Bob, if you want to go to the mic there by Pat, that'd be great. And
I'm Bob Vanskenight with the History Cruisers. We want to make a donation to the Veterans Park for $1,000 so they can do whatever they feel they need to do. And Bruce, I guess, is the recipient of that for the moment.
Thank you very much on behalf of the Veterans Park. We appreciate the donation.
Good, glad we can help you. And our second will be to the Fire Department, wherever Jason's at.
if you all stay up here, we'll take a picture when the presentation's all done.
And Jason, for you and your people, we'd like to give $1,000 and you can figure out the best way it should be spent.
Thank you, Bob.
Yep. And Phil, you're next in line. And thank you, Phil, and for all your people and the service that you give us this year. We appreciate all the help.
Thank you very much.
So, Bob, on behalf of the city, the council, the residents, we appreciate all that you do for the city in regards to the car show.
Well, we thank the city. I mean, we had some ups and downs for a while, and the city stayed with us, and hey, it's working. It's working good for the town and all our vendors, and seem to entertain the people pretty good most of the time.
Well, in the last couple of years have been a challenge, not only for us, but for you guys, and I think as a team, I think we really worked good together.
The city worked very well with us, and the police, the fire, everybody in the city, including the maintenance and the whole crew. It took everybody to make this work, and doing with all the culvert and everything else. We made it work, guys.
Yep.
So thank you guys too.
You're welcome. So thank you all. If we could get one group picture, maybe with the council behind them, that'd be great. Is that an iPhone? Okay, we have another presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item on the agenda is a presentation to Alan Worm, who's retiring from the North St. Paul Planning Commission after 14 years of service. I believe the mayor has something for Mr. Worm.
Al, if you want to come up to the... Believe it or not, you are also a founding member of the Solid Waste Commission, I believe?
Yes, I am,
And that was started when?
in the early 80s.
Was it 2000, early 2000, or is it, I can't remember when it was. Yeah, it was a long time ago,
Yeah.
long time ago. But we want to thank you for your time on the Planning Commission. And maybe Elaine, if you don't mind, coming up as chair? Just be a part, just to, we could both read it, or,
I'll watch you read. I'll
Okay.
correct you if you make a mistake.
okay, there you go. So, Al, the mayor, city council, and planning commission wish to express our sincere gratitude and appreciation for the leadership and dedication you have provided to the community of North St. Paul as a member of the planning commission from January 1st, 2007 to December of 2021. Thank you for a job well done. Did I do good? Okay. Thank you, Al. Thank you. Oh, we take a quick picture. Like to say a couple words?
Oh, just a couple. I just turned 80 years old. It's time to us old farts to step down now. Get a job to some younger people. Hopefully have business ties. They need a business guy on that committee.
Thank you, Al. And again, it just shows what volunteerism is all about, and just a long-time member of the community. So thank you, Al, and your lovely wife, Norma. You want the box? And a third presentation.
The third item tonight is another presentation to Brian Frandl, who is the Electric Utilities Director, but more importantly, for this purpose, served as the interim city manager since June. I would say, for my part, Brian is the first staff member I met at the city of North St. Paul, and he's been so extremely welcoming and helpful to me. And I don't know that I would have embraced this job, this position in the same way had it not been for Brian and the way he welcomed me into the community. He's been very helpful in the transition. Every single employee I've talked to has told me how vital Brian was to the city during this period of time. And so, he was the city manager for 6 months, and I've been the city manager for 2 days. And so I still have a lot to learn, and I appreciate him helping me in this way. And I know you appreciate him as well. And I think maybe this would be a time for you all to talk about your, that appreciation.
I got a little proclamation for him. So Brian, if you want to come up. Elaine, you want to come up? No, just kidding. So Brian, like the new city manager said, it was an honor to be able to serve with you for the last 6 months. I'm glad you were able to take that role. So I'll read the proclamation here. Honoring Brian Frandl for his dedicated service as interim city manager. Whereas Brian Frandl selflessly stepped up to serve his fellow colleagues and the residents of North St. Paul in June of 2021. Whereas Brian Frandl served the city's staff, residents, businesses, and vendors with dedication and professionalism. Whereas Brian Frandl, throughout his interim service as city manager, he also continued to direct the city's electric utility during some major summer projects. Whereas Brian Frandl is a highly respected employee of the city of North St. Paul. Whereas Brian Frandl laid the foundation for John Stark, the new city manager, to assume his new responsibilities. You got a lot to do there, John. So. Whereas the North St. Paul City Council extends its gratitude to Brian Frandl for a job well done. Now therefore, I, Terrence J. Furlong, Mayor of North St. Paul, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim on Tuesday, January 4th, Brian Frandl Day in North St. Paul, Minnesota. Woo. Congratulations, Brian. You got any words to say, or?
Speech.
Oh, we gotta hold it. Now, you have anything to say?
Not really, but, no, I appreciate your guys' confidence in allowing me to do this. I really enjoyed it. It was certainly made easy with the great employees we have here at the city. I couldn't say enough about them. From day one, there wasn't anybody that didn't approach me and said, if there's anything you need, please let me know and I'll help out in any way I can. So turning over the reins to John, I think he's going to do a good job, and we have a really great crew to bring along and move forward. I think it's been really nice. And I'm
We're going to
looking forward
find you over at your office now? Are you still going to, are you going to hold dual offices, or?
That's where I'll be.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So this time we have the consent agenda, and that is the December 7th, 2021 workshop minutes, the December 7th regular meeting minutes, the December special meeting minutes, general claims of $860,412.78, the HRA claims of $29,842.99, the EDA claims of $270, the City of North St. Paul revised COVID-19 operational policy, the law enforcement phlebotomy program implementation support funding recipient, resolution for the previously approved towards zero death grant agreement. At this time, if anybody, council member would like to pull an item at this time, they can.
If I may, I would like to pull item H
So we'll pull item H
and item G.
and item D,
G,
E,
goat. G
H.
as in goat?
H and G.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, it's a bit of a formality, but there is a rule that requires the city council to formally accept any donations. I didn't necessarily see it on the consent agenda, so I'm wondering if we want to add accepting the History Cruisers donations that they presented to the city tonight.
Okay. If we could,
Maybe replace G with accepting donations to the fire department and police department.
if we could replace G with donations from the History Cruisers for the police and fire department.
Thank you.
We'll add that to G, and then we'll move H and G, or G and H down to the regular city business and action items. So at this time, motion to approve the consent agenda with adding that donation spot to that.
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second?
second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. This time, the meeting is open to the public, and I do have one, and that is John Schmall. Welcome, John, and it's a new year, 2022, and I would just like to comment that 3 minutes for discussion, and then what's been added to this is that there's no council action or discussion will be held on any items that is addressed.
Oh,
And that's part of what was on there, so that's new on here.
Oh, well.
So, welcome, John.
Okay. Mayor, council. I don't know where I got involved in this, but it must have been responding to some inquiry and asking for information. But for some reason, I got picked to be on the Citizens Advisory Panel, the CAP, for Highway 120. So I'm sure since they had a meeting after that for the governmental representatives, this is probably going to be doubling up of what you already know. But it was interesting to see what the program is for Highway 120. And one of the things that I found to be very interesting is that a statement was made by the consultant. This was run by a consultant. It wasn't run by the DOT. And the statement was made that the usual use of the normal person who uses Highway 120 is for a distance of less than 2 miles. So it's not a main, according to what they think, is a main artery, shall we say. And that given the different things that people have put in that they wanted to see on 120, like sidewalks and bike lanes, and even one of them was for a wheelchair lane. I've not heard of that before. But in getting that kind of information and my idea of what might be but can't be, you know, County 96, if you've ever driven that, wide road, nice road. That's not what's going to happen with 120. And when comments were asked from the people who were attending as the panel members, there wasn't much said, so you know me. And I said that given the information we received, that it looks like it would be a 3-lane roadway from 94 to 694 with 1 lane north, 1 lane south, and a turn lane right down the center. And I was told by the consultant who was running this that we were not there to provide solutions at this time. We were there to learn how solutions would be actually formulated. So nothing was said about the interchange or anything. It was just a nice PowerPoint presentation of which wasn't asking for any information from the participants. So it's, I thought that at least something would come up about the interchange, but absolutely nothing was mentioned. So that was an hour of my time, which I felt wasn't too worthwhile. But we'll see what continues on. I don't know what might be the new process. I said, when are we going to go for a bus ride with everybody that is here to see what is now in place, that you can say, hey, you know, that's a pretty good idea. But there was no feedback on that as to when we got our bus ride. So we'll see what happens. And the other item that I have down on there is the enterprise fund. I want to thank the finance director for his little sheet that he handed out at the last workshop about the fund balances and things. I've never seen that before, plus the fact that if we didn't, shall we say, repurpose funds, that we'd have a 17% increase in our levy, which is quite interesting. It's the first time in all my times coming up here that the number had been put on how much money we are getting from enterprise funds to run the city. It was very interesting. And as a last item, you don't have to worry about your catalytic converter being stolen if you drive a 20-year-old vehicle. You know, it's these people who want to have a new car that have to worry about that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Is there anybody on Zoom? Okay. So at this time, we have city business and action items, and I'll turn it over to new city manager, John Stark.
Thank you, Mayor Furlong and city council members. We've got a number of items on city action items tonight. Item A is city council appointments, and that is the appointment of council people to serve as liaisons to various committees and commissions. Just going through the list, it would include Mayor Furlong being appointed as the council representative for the Economic Development Authority and Chair of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Councilmember Scott Thorson shall be appointed as the council representative to the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Councilmember Candy Peterson would be appointed as the council representative to the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, the North St. Paul Business Association, Metro Cities, Ramsey County League of Local Governments, and as acting mayor. City Council member Tim Cole shall be appointed as the council representative to the Parks and Recreation Commission, the Economic Development Authority, the Silver Lake Improvement Association, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, the Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District Board, the Silver Lake Improvement Association, and Valley Branch Watershed District Technical Advisory Committee. And finally, Councilmember Lisa Wong shall be appointed as the council representative to the Planning Commission, the Arts and Culture Commission, and the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. So we would submit that for your consideration.
So the motion is for a resolution approving the city council appointments to commissions and committees for 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah, so new year, same comment as last year. I think that, you know, my position hasn't changed on my belief that we rotate these positions. I think that is more beneficial for us as council members to serve on different commissions and committees. I understand that may not be the stance or viewpoint of the majority of the council, but I'm gonna just explain my viewpoint on that, and I think it's more beneficial to rotate positions, so that's why I would plan on not supporting this.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay?
Motion carries. City Manager Stark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item is really annual housekeeping. In January of every year, the city council would select or pass resolutions for relating to the investment committee, the depository bank for city funds and securities, the retainer for the city attorney, the legal newspaper for publications, and the acting mayor. I can certainly, myself or other staff members can address any questions or issues you have on any of these, but as I said, it's really fairly perfunctory kind of housekeeping items.
We'll just go through each one. If there's got any questions, we'll handle at that time. So the first one is the annual resolution appointing investment committee for 2022. That's the first resolution here. Need a motion for that.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Wong, second by Councilmember Thorson. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The second one is the motion for a resolution designating official and supplemental depositories and depositories for investment purposes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Third one is a motion for resolution retaining Campbell Knutson Law Firm as city attorney for 2022.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Wong,
Second, Your Honor.
second by Councilmember Peterson. If the city attorney could leave for a minute.
Yes, yes.
That'll be
I was
good.
wondering how long you're going to make me sweat that out.
Yeah. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Next one is the motion for a resolution, annual resolution approving Minneapolis Star Tribune as official newspaper for 2022.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. I believe the last one is a motion for annual resolution appointing acting mayor for 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Turn it over to City Manager Stark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item is one that was discussed at tonight's work session. It's related to the vacation carryover for all North St. Paul employees. Due to workforce shortages, and I would add the pandemic, staff wasn't able to take the vacation that they accrued as they would normally have done. And so it is being requested to temporarily pause the vacation accrual provision and allow employees with a surplus of vacation time at the conclusion of 2021 to be able to carry over the entire balance of vacation into 2022, as opposed to the capped number that the code would normally require. The maximum accrual caps shall be reinstated at the conclusion of this year. I would only add that in the work session, I didn't have the information in front of me about what the actual accruals were. For employees here 15 years or less, they can accrue a maximum of 20 days. And employees here 15 years or longer, it's 30 days. But again, we would be asking that that cap be waived for 2022. And I would stand for any questions you might have.
Okay, we did have this good discussion in the workshop in regards to this. Any discussion? Any questions for City Manager? If not, the motion is for a resolution approving pause on employee manual policy regarding vacation accrual.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Wong,
Second it.
second by Councilmember Peterson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. City Manager Stark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this item was discussed at tonight's work session. The staff report talks a little bit about the waiving of the holiday hours, which just happened in this prior thing, so we're going to just pass that. But the issue really for this item is what's known as suspense hours for police officers. So the pandemic and staffing crisis in North St. Paul created an overage of suspense hours in the accrual banks. This is a fairly complicated hour-keeping system because of the way the police officers work in shifts differently than many of us work kind of normal 5-day-a-week jobs. In a typical year, suspense hours will even out over the year due to the unique 24-hour-a-day, 365-day-a-year schedule of police officers and the demand that's been placed on them. They have exceeded in many cases, the suspense hours that they would normally accrue. And we are asking, similarly to the vacation accruals, that be waived going into 2022. Chief Babenroth is here, I believe. He may be able to provide additional context to you beyond what I can tell you.
Welcome, Chief. I know we talked about this in the workshop. Maybe just give a little background for the public to understand why we're doing this, because 2021 was an unusual year for us and for our police officers.
Sure, glad to. Yeah, basically it's a pandemic and then injuries, and it created a lot of holes in our staffing schedule, which then didn't allow people to take the normal time off away from work. It was a constant request from me and the other sergeants in our police department asking officers for extra time. And they gladly and thankfully, for the safety of the city, stepped up and filled in whenever we asked them to. And that's where we are in this situation of in excess of suspense time. So I think it is the right thing to do to pay them out for those, because suspense time is basically, if they're in excess, that's extra time that they worked in a patrol car. So it's not, a bank that's just given to them. If there's an excess, that is more hours that they gave to the city working on patrol. So we hope to not be in this situation again at the end of this year, but with the pandemic, we really can't say that for sure. But I think with proper staffing levels, we'll be in a better place at the end of this year.
Never certainty in anything right now, so.
Unfortunately.
Right. Thank you for that. So the motion is for a resolution to approve payout on police officer holiday and suspense hours remaining at the end of 2021. Is there a motion? Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I appreciate all what you do and your officers do.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
City Manager Stark. We need to get more microphones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we are now at the items that were pulled from the consent.
Hold on one second. There was another resolution in item D for the 622 contract reimbursement, looked like.
Thank you for catching
Yeah,
that.
resolution authorizing a budget amendment to the police department's 2022 budget, and that was discussed in the workshop as well.
It's the newbie for City Manager, being the new guy.
Yeah, sorry, that was a
Thank you,
late,
Councilmember
it was a
Thorson.
late addition to the packet. So if you
All right.
could, that.
So yes, we do have a motion for a resolution authorizing a budget amendment to the Police Department's 2022 budget.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson. Second by Councilmember Peterson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then, so we're moving items G and H. And the first one will be the City of North St. Paul revised COVID-19 operational policy. And I'll turn it over to Councilmember Wong in regards to her question.
Thank you. I'm interested to hear, what changes were made. I can see them, but for the public's purpose, I would like for us to maybe discuss that a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, Councilmember Wong. I might ask Finance Director Dan Winnick, I believe Dan played a role in preparing the staff report, if he could highlight some of the changes that were made from the prior COVID policy that the City Council had approved.
Mayor, council members, really the only change that was made to the policy that was adopted last year was that on December 27th of 2021, the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention updated and shortened their recommended isolation and quarantine period for the general population. So on the policy itself, and in your packet, it would begin on page 52. And it starts, if you test positive for COVID-19, to isolate. So it's really a reduction to 5 days of isolation. And they really are taking into consideration the differences between vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals and the importance of a booster. You can see in how it's been written from the CDC that those are being emphasized in kind of the duration on how an individual should be treated. And so it'll explain how employees need to be relate to if they test positive for COVID, if they're exposed to somebody for COVID, if they develop symptoms and so forth. The rest of the policy all stays in place. It's really just reducing the duration in which you need to isolate yourself.
Thank you. In light of the situation and what we're talking about is staffing shortages, I just have some concerns that we don't have a masking policy. Given we have had issues with staff being out for COVID. I know that it is difficult to wear a mask all day, but I believe that with 6,800 cases in most of them in the metro area, that we are looking at a peak here in January. So I would like to consider us using masks, at least in the temporary, as we approach the peak, which is supposed to be at the end of January.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just speak to a couple of things.
I was going to say, how do we handle that? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with how new I am to the position, I haven't yet even met with all the department directors to talk about the various COVID provisions. I believe that the way we've been handling it is really on a situational basis in terms of masking for employees. Our public works facility, there was a recent higher incidence of COVID infection, and so they have implemented a mask policy at that facility. The thinking to date has been, again, that it be situational if there was a spike in any one area of city operations, that it would be dealt with that way. I am open to suggestions. I'm open to your input on what the ideal masking policy would be. This is obviously an issue that there are varied opinions on. My personal philosophy is a couple of things. You know, I do like to follow the CDC and the Minnesota Department of Health, and I also like to be respectful of people's needs. And I would like to find a way to make sure that we are able to do both of those things as a staff. So again, I'd be open to suggestions.
what we did at the bank just started this week was mandatory mask for all employees for the next 2 weeks to get over this kind of the peak is what we're seeing right now. So that's what we've done at our business. And I guess I would rather leave it up to you, because you're the one that sees all the employees. Any other suggestions, beyond that, that's what I can offer is, we mandated it because there are outbreaks within our business. So we're, taking care of that hopefully by doing the mask policy for at least a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Thorson?
Yeah, my position hasn't changed. I don't believe in mandates. I think this is a decision that should be left up to the individual and consulting with their physician. I don't think we as a city should be taking any stance for or against medical-related things. That information should be dealt with at an individual level with their physician. So the idea of requiring a mask mandate for me, I'm not going to support at all, although I will acknowledge the concerns about, employees being out with being sick. Instituting a mask mandate could also have a similar negative consequence where employees who feel their rights are being violated decide not to come into work or seek employment elsewhere. So, this is a difficult decision, or, it's a complicated topic, but I think it's best that we leave it up to department heads and employees to figure out what works best for them. So a mandate is something that I'm not going to support at all.
Could I just pause the council discussion for a second and check something with the city attorney? So my thinking is that in terms of requiring employees to wear masks, that would be a city manager decision. But if the council were to make a decision that city facilities to the public and/or employees would be, mask would be required, that would be a council decision. Does that sound right to you?
That is how we've handled it in the past, yes.
And I think it's, and I'm just speaking on personal, what we're dealing with at the bank, is that there is not a mask mandate right now out there. So to have the public come in, it's harder to mandate that policy. But I think as an employee or employer, we're able to mandate our employees just for, may not even be a mandated, it's suggestion or whatever. It's, whatever people feel comfortable with, but having some sort of policy that we would recommend having a mask, within the next 3 weeks or whatever. That's just my own point of view.
Yeah, I suppose I'm just looking at this from a preventative standpoint rather than a reactionary. And, we can react to outbreaks, which is helpful in reducing the spread. However, we're still out people in that regard. So that would be my big concern.
Anybody else?
Well, I would say, as the city manager, I'm obviously going to be taking your comments under advisement. I'm going to be maybe doing a little bit more research tonight and tomorrow morning into the timing of the next couple of weeks. If you have any specific information on the timing, if you could let me know that would be helpful. I think it would be helpful for city staff to hear something from me on my thoughts on masks. And so I will get something out to city employees in the next couple of days with some, I would say, I don't want to box myself in. My initial feeling would be with some suggestions or recommendations from the city manager. I've seen it in other places. I know you have too. I don't, being the mask police doesn't really help anybody, and it doesn't accomplish the objective. But to let people know what my desires and hopes would be, I think would be helpful for them to hear.
My only comments are I am comfortable with the way that the policy is currently written. I do definitely applaud the fact that the city manager can make the decisions going forward should something happen, and I would fully support any decision that you would make from a mask standpoint if it were needed. But I think just the wording, the way the policy is now, I'm comfortable with, as long as you've got the flexibility to change that.
Anybody else? Not, the motion is for a resolution approving a revised COVID-19 operational policy.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And then the next item is item H, which is, I'm going to say it again, law enforcement phlebotomy program implementation support funding recipient. And I'll turn over to Councilmember Wong. I see lobotomy, and it scares me. I'll turn to Councilmember Wong.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank you Chief, for working so hard as you've just jumped right in. I know that you're supporting the officers and you're diligently looking for funding. And we've had a great discussion and workshop. So
Thank you.
I do have some questions in regards to the law enforcement phlebotomy program. I'm a little unclear on what the policy is in which this program would be implemented under.
Sure. So we have a policy that goes along with it, prepared to adopt this program. So basically, it's a National Highway Traffic Safety pot of money that we were approved for to implement this phlebotomy program, which is we're able to use to spend on training and anything that this program needs to take off. So the amount is $40,000 that we have been awarded based on a grant application that we received. So we're going to send an officer to become a phlebotomist, which is then going to prevent the need, if we're ever in the scenario of we suspect a driver for driving under the influence that is something other than alcohol, we're able to test them at our police department with a warrant in place to complete a blood draw versus sending that officer with this person that has been placed under arrest for their driving conduct down to Regents or St. John's to spend countless hours waiting, likely now in the constant constraints going on at every single hospital for hours on end for a nurse to perform the same blood draw to show what this person has in their blood, which is likely some kind of drug, which is impairing their driving. So at the end of the day, it's going to reduce overtime that we're not going to spend to pay an officer to sit and wait in a waiting room at a hospital. It's going to give our officer an opportunity to get this training, because with it comes, I don't know what the number is, 50 to 100 live blood draws, and then we become a countywide asset. I mean, we hear on the radio quite a bit, just, hey, does anybody have a phlebotomist on? And now we're able to say yes, and we can go spend 10 minutes driving over to Maplewood or whatever agency is asking for help to complete a blood draw for whatever incident that they're in, versus them spending the same amount of time driving down to a hospital, waiting for hours to process the arrest. That's kind of the whole concept in a short summary.
So in terms of like the criteria, like I'm trying to imagine this happening and so someone's pulled over suspected of, driving under the influence. How do you determine if it's, do you use breathalyzers, or what are some of the tools that you're using right now?
Sure, so if they smell alcohol, they're gonna use a breathalyzer. If they don't smell alcohol and the driving conduct is so bad where they believe that they're under or looking at their eyes and their pupils are dilated or constricted, they're going to use whatever information that they have to make the assessment if this person is intoxicated. Blood draw comes into place when alcohol is not suspected. And it's all done through a search warrant to have a blood draw completed. So they're not just going to go out arresting people and sticking needles in their arms to take their blood. It's authorized by a judge through a warrant to complete the blood draw.
Do you suspect that there would be some hesitation from the public to see this program occurring?
Would the public hesitate? No, not. No, I think it's in the public's best interest to get people who are crashing vehicles and driving terribly off the road. I think in the past 2 years, really, since the pandemic started, we're seeing a huge increase in awful driving and accidents and injuries and deaths because of that on our streets. So this is a program that's going to help reduce those fatalities and injuries and accidents on our roads.
If I could add, and maybe this helps clarify, I don't believe that the process is necessarily changing. I think under the current process, a person who is suspected of being under the influence in this way, a warrant would be sought, and they would be then transported to an off-site facility to have this work done. The only change that this program would have is not whether the phlebotomy occurs, it's where it occurs and who administers it. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's us doing it versus somebody at the hospital, basically. So yeah, that's absolutely right. There's no process change. It's just who's doing the blood draw.
Correct, okay. And I just have some concerns in terms of, you know, I think some of the public may be hesitant to know that that is occurring, that that's part of the work of police officers. I say that because of what has happened in the last couple years, and we all know that there is trust that needs to be built. And I'm concerned that this program may dissolve some of that trust with some of our public.
You know, I appreciate your concern. I would absolutely disagree that I don't think anyone's going to object to a process that is in place for somebody suspected of driving intoxicated or under the influence of something. When you get a license in Minnesota or any other state, there's implied consent laws. So that means a licensed driver has consented to their blood alcohol concentration or drug testing when they're driving just by virtue of having a license. So that's nothing new. That's just, that happens. So if somebody's refusing that breath or urine, the blood draw is an option. And that's a part of your, when you check the box, when you get a license, that's the implied consent. So this is an option to gauge whether someone is under the influence and they can be safely operating on our roadways in our city or all around the state. Really, so it's not, this has been done. This is not a new thing. There's tons of other agencies that already do this. They have a phlebotomist on staff. The county has several. I'm not sure if Maplewood has any or not, but this program is funding our ability to do something that's already authorized and a part of detecting whether somebody's under the influence of drugs.
In terms of the $40,000, I see that the salary in overtime is not included in that. It's mostly for items and you know, syringes and all of that. Is this only a one-time funding opportunity?
Yeah, the grant, so we have to spend everything by the end of September. I have a whole list of everything that we're planning on buying. One of them is going to be it's a Narcotics Analyzer. Basically, it's going to allow this device to, a lot of times when there's an arrest made, we're searching the vehicles and occasionally finding drugs. There's unfortunately a lot of incidents throughout the country where an officer finds a bag of drugs in a car and they take the bag and then they're breathing in the contents of that bag to the point of passing out or overdosing because it's a bag of fentanyl or something terrible that is then impacting the officers. So this device, one of the budget items that we're planning on getting would allow us to just hold the device up to the bag. You don't have to touch the bag at all. It tells you what drug is inside the bag, therefore increasing the safety of any officer that's searching a vehicle, so they don't have to physically touch whatever suspected drug is that they find in a vehicle. And the other ones are all based on training and equipment of, there's a chair, tape. Everything else is directly related to the actual process of bringing this program.
I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I just think it's another layer of protection. I think it's good. I'm a big advocate of public safety, as all we are. I think it's just, hopefully, it'll be good, and it'll just be more like protection out there for people that are just driving around, and safety factor. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah, so I mean, this is something, to me, it sounds like it's a no-brainer. I mean, the example you used of how typically how this would work is, an officer would be taken off our streets for potentially an hour or longer to go to have this process administered down at a hospital. And I think, as you've pointed out earlier in our workshop, a question was asked, what's the most type of calls the police department is responding to? And your response was medical calls. And I think this is just a product of seeing how things change, roles change. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. If you were on the fire department, you were issued a turncoat and boots, and we drove around on the back of the fire truck, and we basically just put out fires, and responding to medical calls were not a part of it. Now that's completely different. And we've had discussion in the past about, or at least I've inquired about potentially looking at the police department getting more involved in EMS calls and potentially looking at additional training beyond their first responder, like EMT or paramedic. So although I understand Councilmember Wong's concerns about, is this something that we should be concerned about? The public is now, you can get your blood drawn by a police officer. I think maybe that, it's just a matter of communicating and explaining what we're doing and why we're doing it. I think we've done that here tonight, and we can continue to do that. But to me, it seems to make sense, and I'm grateful that there was a grant opportunity and we were able to apply for that and get it. And so I applaud you and thank you for doing that, and look forward to implementing this policy.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
So the motion is resolution authorizing law enforcement phlebotomy program implementation support.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries. And at this time, we have, I think that's it, unless there's anything from the city manager.
Mr. Mayor, as I said, today's my second day on the job. I'm going to be meeting with all of you in the next week and talking about my thoughts for the first 3 months as your city manager. I'll give you a sneak preview, though. It is really focused on listening and learning. Is really where I want to put my efforts in the first 3 months. And we'll be talking about what you can teach me, what I can learn, and we'll move from there.
Well, usually he brings coffee and, donuts to us during our council meetings, so we'll.
I do
make
bring
sure that-
coffee to meetings.
And pizza at the end of
And
workshops.
pizzas, yeah, that'd be perfect. No, thank you and welcome, and we welcome you to our meetings and being our new city manager. So thank you.
Yeah, and
We look forward to it.
the mechanics of how city council meetings operate vary widely from city to city, so it's going to take me a little bit of time to get into the rhythm here. So I appreciate any patience you can give me.
Good, yeah, no, that's good. All right, so from there, we go to our reports from council, commission, and committees, and I'll start it with Councilmember Cole.
All right. Park and Rec had a special December meeting primarily designed to review the park improvement plan. The goal was to really go through and make sure that the content is the way that it was intended to be. If they happen to stumble across a misspelled word, a punctuation, we attempted to correct that along the way as well, but that wasn't necessarily the primary purpose. The secondary goal was to have been able to have this completed so that it would be ready for the Planning Commission meeting on the 7th, for the Planning Commission to review, make recommendations to where they felt it should be, to make sure it's in compliance with everything else that the city, all the guidelines that the city has laid out. Once that's done, it'll go back to the PNR for this month's meeting to review the comments made by the Planning Commission, make any addendums or corrections that they want to adopt, and then it'll go back to WSB for final prettying up, per se. Have them go back through and scrub it for spelling errors and punctuation and bolding and unbolding, et cetera, with the hopes and goals to be able to present to council by February-ish, probably the second meeting in February. But whenever we can find room to get it on the workshop. They're excited. This has been a long, drawn-out process. It's we're at least a year into this thing, if not longer. So they're excited. They're excited to get things going back in the parks and make sure that the long-term plan matches up with the city's long-term strategies and be able to move forward. Next EDA meeting is Tuesday the 11th at 3 o'clock here in the Sandberg room, I'm assuming, not in the council room, so in the Sandberg room. So other than that, that's it for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Wong?
As you can see, Alan Worm has left the building. But he has also left the Planning Commission, as you saw his presentation today, so want to thank him for his time with us. We have a next meeting on Thursday for the Planning Commission. As Tim Cole has discussed, we will also be looking at the design of seating in the downtown area in this next meeting as well, and have some discussion around that. As for the Arts and Culture Commission, they're still working through some of the bylaws, and they're finalizing that up, and our next meeting is January 19th, I believe. The EDA and the redevelopment master plan, I'll defer to Scott Thorson to report on that. And I think that's just about everything. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
It's, the 19th Avenue Student House building, house is going well. Cold weather is not their friend. They were off for break, but it's really awesome. I got to look at it, got inside, and there'll be a roof on there pretty quick, I think, and the electric's in. Is that right, Ron? Gas, okay. So they're making strides, and they're really an ambitious group, because it was cold today. It's going to get colder. And the NSP Business Association luncheon will be next Tuesday, the 11th, at noon at the Legion. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Thorson.
And I will have to apologize because I was not able to attend the meeting on the 27th, so I don't know if you were there, Lisa, or not, but
Yeah, I was
I'll have to
actually,
kick
yeah.
it back to you then if you want to give any updates.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thanks. My bad.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I think we're still kind of discussing the parameters and the guidelines and the direction. We are taking note of the sensitivity of including our business community in that process as well. So we are just chugging along and just trying to identify the parameters of the redevelopment master plan.
And it looks like the next meeting is on the January 31st. Is it the last Monday of the month, correct? At 6:30 here at City Hall, I believe, is the schedule, so.
Okay, good, thank you. Is Morgan available to talk?
I am, if you can hear me and/or see me, Mr. Mayor.
I can hear you, so I just want to mention the meeting that we had with the Highway 36 group, and that was with the officials, county commissioners, mayors, and all pertaining parties from 94 all the way up to 694. And I know you've been kind of our liaison for the city in the background, and these meetings are kind of moving along. And what we actually, Councilmember Peterson was also on that meeting. It was a Zoom meeting, and we talked about, like you said, on 120, which is from 94 to 694. So you're looking at a pretty extensive area. But I think what came down to was more of a discussion in regards to 120 on Century Avenue, of working with the counties, both county commissioners, and with the mayors of both cities, and moving that ahead for more discussion. I think the biggest discussion that is kind of work out is the funding of it. We talked about the funding possibly coming from the federal government and also local government. I think they mentioned about 12 different areas that we could actually get the funding from, but they did not mention all those areas. But it sounded like it'd be an accumulation of a lot of different areas that the money would come from. So from that, I don't know, Morgan, if you can add anything to that from the meeting?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, so that was a really good synopsis of the local officials meeting, and behind the scenes, from a staff perspective, there has been if you want to call it, a technical advisory committee that is made up of city engineers, MnDOT engineers. There's some MnDOT consultants that are helping to run this whole process. And basically, for the benefit of the council and any public that is watching or following along, we heard Mr. Schmall's comment at the start of the meeting, and he was involved in another aspect of this process, which is kind of a citizens advisory group. All of this is rolling together in what is being conducted by MnDOT on the 120 corridor. As you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, it's a large section of roadway that they're studying or looking at. But this study is basically the very first step in evaluating environmental impacts, social impacts, economic impacts of implementing the needs, both transportation and multimodal and stormwater related, all of the different needs that go into what will ultimately be a re-envisioning of 120. Now, this may be decades off in terms of what might happen ultimately through the whole corridor, but there are certain highlighted areas within the corridor that are of focus. I know John mentioned that he didn't hear anything on the interchange in his meeting, but I can represent that it has been heavily discussed during the technical advisory meetings. I think it got some conversation at the local officials meeting. And so that the interchange or proposed interchange at 120 and 36 is certainly an area of focus. And my takeaway at the local officials, which I thought was very encouraging, is that there was a strong show of unity, if you will. Multiple cities, multiple counties, county officials, elected officials, all kind of talking in unison in terms of the importance to move things forward, to keep momentum going, to keep working together in a collaborative fashion, and to try to take advantage of some of the transportation funding opportunities, as the mayor mentioned, that are out there that will be coming. And so, I think that there will be more conversations. This study is just one small part of it to help get some of those early environmental impact things out of the way so that could be used to help inform and move things forward once we get into a funding or preliminary design scenario, which we haven't yet gotten to. But we're certainly much closer right now than we ever have been before in terms of getting everybody on the same page, getting the public informed, getting all the different local agencies and the state agencies and Met Council informed as to the needs on the corridor. And so there's certainly going to be more to come, which as things develop, as MnDOT finishes their study, I'm sure that will be communicated back to all the cities and the counties as well. So more to come, certainly.
Thank you, Morgan. I appreciate that. So yeah, it was a very good meeting, I thought, as Morgan said, in regards to everyone's supportive of it, not only the mayors and the county commissioners, but also our state legislator and state senator. So that's very positive. With that, that's all I have. General business, Councilmember Cole.
General business, I don't have a whole lot. I just want to wish everyone a happy new year. We're off to a fantastic start. Meeting was short and sweet. The earlier meeting, the workshop was short and sweet. And tonight we're going to probably get out of here before 8 o'clock. So we're off to a great start. I want to just take a couple seconds. Just John, welcome. Welcome to the family per se. Tomorrow's what, day 3? So no more new guy. New guy is day 1 and 2, man. It's over. Otherwise, I want to give a heartfelt thank you to Lisa Ritchie for all of her dedication to the Park and Rec for the last 6 months. Lisa has helped step in and basically took on dang near every commission I think there was. There's staff is increasing effective Monday. So Jill Officer will take over as the staff liaison for the Park and Rec. So we welcome her and we're excited. But just a heartfelt thanks to Lisa for everything that she's done, and just a huge thank you to Carrie as well for all the efforts that she's put forth in everything that the city touches. But she's handled a lot of the nice emails from me regarding Casey Lake and keeping it moving forward as well. So a lot of work has been done behind the scenes that necessarily aren't recognized by everyone, and I just wanted to thank you for that as well. That's it for me.
Good. Thank you. Councilmember Wong?
Yeah, I have one update in regards to the community center. We are still working on that lease agreement, and hopefully we'll have it in the next meeting or two. Again, Happy New Year. Looking forward to this year, and welcome, John.
Thank you. Councilmember Peterson?
Yeah, I just wanted to do another shout out to Rachel Thompson. The project Christmas tree was a huge success. We had 24 families that were facilitated, and I saw a lot of happy faces on the moms and dads that they could provide a great Christmas for their children. And grandmas were there, and sometimes grandmas are raising the kids too. So it was really heartfelt, and I give her it was a lot of work that goes into it, and it was pretty much done by her. She did all the soliciting and, got the things. And, I kind of I put things in bags. She wraps everything. So she wraps things very pretty. She had a couple little elves to help her, but it was really well done. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Councilmember Thorson?
Well, unfortunately, I have about 3 hours of things that I was just planning on discussing. And lots of questions for the new city manager. I got a lot of questions for our attorney, so I think we're going to be here. No, just kidding, obviously. Happy New Year to everyone. Happy Brian Frandl Day to everyone. Yeah. Thank you again for filling in. And just wanted to point out one thing quickly. Unfortunately, some residents were not able to celebrate Christmas and waking up to a sewer backup that had happened in my neighborhood. Actually, 2 residents, and one resident, it had happened. This is the 6th time it's happened. And I know they've reached out, and one resident shared quite a bit of information with council. Staff has been in contact and working with her, and she's been very pleased and happy with the work that staff has done to resolve that issue, but I think what's going to come of this is that we're going to have to revisit our capital improvement plan, and this has happened in an area that we originally had slated for reconstruction, full reconstruction in 2020, and it got pushed off because of the downtown project. And obviously, as we move through this long process, we're going to have these things come up, and I think this is something we seriously need to reconsider and focus on, because, it's bad enough that this happens once, especially on Christmas Day, but to happen 6 times, it needs to be addressed, and I think we really need to look at, rescheduling. I know for 2022, we've already got the ball rolling and things moving on. I'm not proposing that we put a stop to that. And and this is a large financial undertaking too, so we can't just say, oh, and now we're going to do this too and pick it back up where we left off. But I would just like to stress to the council the importance of revisiting that, focusing on that area again. And, there's times where I question some of the things we get involved with, and I bring up the fact that we should be focusing on our core essential services. Some of that is preventative maintenance in this aspect of, what can we do to prevent things like this? Well, you do sewer cameraing and jetting, and, we've got limited staff already on top of that who can perform that. So when we get into things that maybe we can do, we should be asking ourselves, well, should we? Because there's an opportunity cost that we're giving up here. And here's a clean example of that. Driving into work, I saw there's a large water main break on 17th. It's just another example of some things that maybe in the past we've neglected to maybe focus more attention on preventative maintenance. So just wanted to bring that up, and I'm sure we'll have continued discussion on that in the future. So.
Thank you. And I have a couple items here. One is I got a thank you note from Mark Casey, who did the selection committee. Dear Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to assist in the search of your new city manager. It was such a pleasure to work with all of you and your wonderful staff. The North St. Paul community is so fortunate to have folks like you that truly care. Thanks again, Mark. So it's a nice thank you from Mark. And I want to say thank you also for our process and our selection of our new city manager, John Stark. We look forward to working with you in 2022. 2022 is going to be a better year. If we get this, hopefully we're moving ahead in the right direction here, and it should be a good year, and I hope you enjoy your time here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, I don't like to make promises that I don't feel like I can keep. I promise you, for the North St. Paul staff, 2022 will be a better year.
Great. Thank you. With that said, what we normally would like to do is schedule a retreat with the council and with the city manager, new city manager, and I think we'd like to do that sooner than later, so maybe sometime in January, maybe early February, schedule that. It's typically a few hours long. So I don't know if you want to look at your calendars right now or wait till the next meeting to look, but I guess I would like to look at we've done it on a Saturday before, Saturday morning, like from 8 till noon. We've done that in the past. I think we've done it on a Thursday night. I'm open on a Saturday now. I don't have the liquor store, so I'm pretty open on my Saturdays. So if that works for everybody, like 8 till noon and have a hard stop at noon or earlier, if it goes, may not take 4 hours. It might take 6 hours with the new city manager. No, I'm just kidding. Would February 12th work?
Mr. Mayor, I think I'd already informed you I'm unavailable
On that,
kind
okay.
of mid-February, from the 12th to the 20th, I'm unavailable.
Okay. February 5th? On the 5th? The 5th?
I'm gonna go Friday, so I could miss that, so
Okay.
if that works out.
February 5th?
I've got a commitment from 9 to 10 if we want to start later,
Go to 10 to 2?
or 10:30. I gotta get here, so. Otherwise, January 15th, I mean, if we want to hammer it out in a week.
My 15th is open. January 15th is open for me.
I would just want to make sure that we're all on the same page on what we're trying to accomplish at the retreat. If we think we
It's-
can,
Kind of too early. I think the 15th is too early.
it
because
feels too early to me.
Yep. January 27th is a Thursday. If we did like from 5 o'clock to 8 or 9, just say 9, and January 27th. We'll do January 27th. Is 5 o'clock, can we do earlier? 4:30, or is 5 o'clock?
I can make, at this point, I can make 4:30 work.
4:30? 4:30? We'll do 4:30 on January 27th. And that'll give us enough time. You have the interviews with all of us and maybe work with Soren. I don't know if we want you to be a part of that work session or not. 27th. That works for you. So maybe as part of the meeting, we could have have Soren as the start of the meeting and go over some cleaning items or whatever that we need to do for the year. We've talked about that before, talking about open meeting law and all that, just a recap. And have you maybe for an hour, Soren? Okay. So January 27th at 4:30, and it'll be a council retreat, and that'll have to be posted. I think that's all I have, and I just want to wish everybody, hope everybody had a nice holiday and Happy New Year, and I look forward to 2022. So motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Peterson, second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.